Welcome back for another OG show live. Mr. Randall, how you doing?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Reel Down.
Welcome back to another episode of Bass Fishing for News.
Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to once again the Bass Kayak Beers.
Brother, this is the final cast.
Another segment of Chasing the Tide, your saltwater connection on the paddle fin.
Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of Feather and Fur. Your host, Brad.
Welcome back to the Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Crystal.
Hey, welcome back to Off the Water.
Susie Q here with Adventures of Outdoor Woman podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Rusty Hook Kayak Fishing Podcast.
We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Eastport Marina on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake. For all your lodging, kayaking, go to eastport.info. Yak Gadget for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Reel Down. I'm your host, Jimmy Skinner, and with me as normal, Dan Perry. What's up, Dano?
What's up?
Not too much, man. About you? You done any fishing at all lately?
No, zero.
Yeah, man. I can't tell you the last time I went fishing. I think it's pretty sad.
Well, I want to right now. My kid's been hockey, and just coming back from the KFL thing I guess that was 2 weekends ago. So that's the last time I've been. But I bought a whole bunch of shit since then.
I got a whole new setup I brought home. I got a Torpedo 1103 laying in the floor over there. I still ain't put in the water.
There you go.
Supposed to be doing some videos and stuff, and I'm slacking. I just hadn't had the freaking want to go. When I get back home, I'm just like, no, I don't care.
I'm ready to go. I got to work on Saturday. That sucks, but dude, I'm need to reach out to Yakima. I'm like Yakima everything. I got a cargo this week. I got a cargo carrier, a rod box, and a trailer. All Yakima. I'm just Yakima it up. So I'm ready to go.
You and Brian can battle it out for the most Yakima crap because Brian's got a lot of it.
All right.
Well, you got another good show lined up. Most of you already know that the Hobie TOC, the final event of the year, happened last weekend down in Caddo. And we've got the winners of that event with us to give us the rundown of, how it was and how they dominated all weekend. So we'll go ahead and get them in here. You want to bring them in, Dan?
Yeah, here we go. We got Brady Stores, Brian Nelly, and Justin Patrick. Nelly, right? I said that right, didn't I?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so. I listened to the awards, and man, gotta get me one of them big checks. But okay, congrats, y'all. Thank y'all for being on the show. We've had Justin on the show before, but we'll go ahead and start with him. Give everybody a chance to say who you are, so people will know, who they're listening to. Go ahead, Justin.
So I'm Justin Patrick from Memphis, Tennessee area.
And hey, tell them about the podcast too, man.
Okay, yeah. So I host my own podcast, Lines End Yak Fishing. We're on Facebook and YouTube. In fact, I just dropped today's episode live, so you can check that out either on our Facebook page or YouTube. I'm just getting over a little cold right now, so my throat's a little scratchy, but yeah.
Cool. Brady, how about you, man?
Yeah, I'm Brady Stores. I'm from up here in Nebraska, way up north of all you guys, but pretty cold up here.
All right. And Brian?
Yep, Brian Nelly, Palm Beach, Florida. It's pretty cold here, 84 degrees.
Oh God, I'm so sorry for y'all and y'all's major cold front.
It's 30 here right now.
It's in the low 40s here. I mean, it's chilly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and go over the numbers here. I got it up. So Brian, you obviously won. You just destroyed the field. Super dominant. Day one, Brady, you had 98 and 3/4. Brian second with 96 and 3/4. And then Justin, you had 91 and a half. Still 91. Hell of a day. And then day two, Brian, you had 96 and a quarter. let me see a little bit down here. Justin with 87 and a quarter, and then Brady with a 21st with 82 and 3/4. Still a heck of a day, 82. I wish every day was 82. And then overall, Brian, I'm sorry, day 3, Brian, you had 101 and a half, big bag of tournament. Justin 95 and 3/4, and then Brady with 93 and a quarter. So overall, Brian 294 and a half, Brady 274 and 3/4, and Justin with 274 and a half, quarter inch, man. But Cato absolutely just showing out. 50 people, even 20th place had 231. So yeah, just super great fishing, huh?
Yeah.
Listen to the Hobie, the weigh-in, man. It just sounded like y'all just had the most fun fishing. I'm excited to hear it. Do one of y'all kind of want to talk about Cato, just how it lays out? And did anybody fish? What is it, Bistino?
Yeah,
we couldn't fish Bistino.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. So
that's next March.
Next March, okay. Yeah, I saw it on the thing. I didn't know if it was available this time. So yeah, somebody want to kind of give a rundown of Cato?
I'll run with it.
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
Go for it, Dave.
So Cato, I mean, is an amazing, beautiful lake. I found it pretty interesting. A lot of people there were from all over the world doing photography. Quite a few people from Japan and stuff. It was pretty cool to see that. But really interesting lake, man. Average depth of about 4 feet. There's one spot on the entire lake that I think is 20. I saw one area that was like 10 feet, but nothing but cypress trees. If you're like me and you're traditional structure type fisherman, it's definitely not really up your alley, but you can find ways to, fish your strengths. But definitely a shallow water angler's dream, man, cover water, or like in Brian's case, find the honey hole. But, interesting lake, a lot of water to cover. Seemed like there was a lot of dead area. A lot of the water was pretty dead, but, one of those places you can go out and maybe you can pick up 5 covering a lot of water, or you can hunker down in an area that's holding good quality fish. You got the river up there. You got Clinton Lake. All that stuff was in play, but they had designated launches for this tournament, so it was kind of interesting to see how that played out for the field. I know there's quite a few anglers that really make their money by getting away from the crowd and stuff, but with that designated launch, kind of made it a little challenge. So
yeah, and I'll say it right now that we've had listening to KBN rule shows, and we had a rule show, just kind of talking about all the different possibilities of what rules can be next year for national trails. And, a lot of local trails are going to follow that too. I got to say, like, after I've thought about it, I've listened to everybody's sides of the story. I'm actually on 4 borders and just letting you fish up to the border. Just have at it. If your skill can get you over something, knock yourself out. But I got to say, after listening to everybody's side of it, I'm not for designated launches, because it forces people like Drew to put a motor on our kayak whenever that isn't necessarily the best thing for them to do. So I don't know if anybody else wants. Did anybody else for or against the designated launches?
I like it for the championship, I think, but especially when you've got like that many people in a field for a regular season event. How much work it'd be for a tournament director to like find enough ramps to where you wouldn't have 20 people at a ramp.
That's been my look at it too. Like maybe one of the national trails just for a championship event when it's 50 people or less. That makes sense. It's fine. But trying to cram 200 guys and then telling me I can only go to one of like, I don't even know, like 5 areas or whatever it may be. I think that's just, and I don't even think it kills it from the like, well, I can't go where I want to aspect. It's just like, well, man, I'm just going to be around so many people. And like Dan said, for guys that have no want to put the motor setups on their kayak and fish that way, you're kind of going to have to stay with the field, to stay competitive. But
Yeah.
We've talked about it a lot. That's getting his
Yeah.
beat to death. And at this point, I don't even care. I just want to see what everybody's going to do for next year.
Yeah. I'm sure they've already made their decisions anyways, and they're not going to listen to me. But Brady, so tell us about your practice, man.
Practice was awesome, dude. I caught fish everywhere I went. I got there Friday night, so I got every practice day to go fish. I caught fish on docks, rocks, grass, trees, shallow, deep. I mean, deep is relative on that lake. You know, Brian and I's spot, the deepest spot was like 8 foot there, but just a little transition is all you needed on that lake. But you know, I was just going and looking for the schooling fish up shallow in the fall. You know, that's my jam. You know, find the schooling fish, find an area that has a bunch of them, and I found a bunch of areas like that. But the best area I found was out where Brian and I fish. We fished very close to one another out on this big flat. And the first day of practice, I was motoring back to the kind of towards the ramp. I wasn't done fishing, but it was late in the evening, and just looked down and saw a little blip on my graph after I'd gone from 3 foot to 7 foot, turned around and 18, 20. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to come back here in a few days and graph around, and graphed around that whole area, marked the river channel, found several more schools up there on different little drops and shells and stumps. And I decided to go there for the first day of the tournament. So that's kind of, I just went through practice catching fish everywhere I went and catching some good ones here and there. And it was awesome. I love that place.
And I know you have a PA with a bow mounted motor. Do you have live scope too?
Mm-hmm. Live scope was a giant part of my practice in finding the fish, and also in the tournament. It helped me catch a bunch of fish on day 3. But yeah, I just, you know, you'd go along that channel and look up there with live scope, and you could just, I mean, obviously there were really big fish up there, so there'd just be like a mass of fish up there on the ledge that you could see with live scope.
Wow. Brian, how about you, man? How was your practice?
I mean, I came in a little later. I came in like Monday afternoon. I got a couple hours on Monday afternoon. You know, fishing more up the creeks. Didn't really see too much. Had a couple blow-ups on a frog. Monday or Tuesday or Monday, I don't remember what day it was. The first full day I had, I didn't really find too much. I was kind of getting a little depressed, thinking like, oh, I'm not going to find much here, and I'm not thinking I'm going to do that well. But then, you know, the next day I went out, changed areas, and found some things. You know, I caught a few on the worm, good 18-inch fish, and you know, along some grass edges. So I kind of located some of that stuff, and then I eventually came up on my main spot that I just saw some fish, you know, busting shad. Again, you know, off of a flat on a little deeper edge. And, you know, I saw that day, and then the next day I launched at another spot that was somewhat close to that. And I worked my way over there again. I saw him doing the same thing. So, you know, I got that idea in my head that, you know, it wasn't just a fluke, and there might be something to it there. And, you know, obviously it worked out, because in tournament day it was on, and the next 3 days after that it was on. So
that's an understatement.
Yeah. For real. And Justin, how about you, man?
Yeah, so I came down Saturday morning and practiced Saturday and Sunday. Came back home and worked Monday and Tuesday, and then went back Wednesday. I'm not too far from it, but yeah, Saturday, you know, I was just kind of covering a lot of water fishing, isolated stuff. Having a lot of success doing that, you know, just really out in open water. You know, there's duck blinds, old abandoned blinds and stuff like that. And I mean, I was shaking off and catching fish. I mean, in fact, my second cast of the day came off of an isolated tree. So, and it was like a 5-pounder. So I was like, oh yeah, you know, this is going to be the deal. And even when I came back on Wednesday, you know, went back and checked some of the same kind of stuff and was shaking off fish, really good, you know, filling fish. But kind of going back to Saturday, I had started out that morning just running a bank line with a square bill and picked up a 5 or 6 pound fish pretty quick. And, it bit it shallow, pretty shallow, close to the trees, but not up in the trees. And that was kind of the first sign that turned me onto that particular area. And when I came back on Wednesday, I made another pass through there, not really trying to beat it up or anything, but within the first or second cast, had another one on that came on. I didn't even set the hook on it. It just came off. So, that was, I spent some time, going and looking at some just kind of off the wall stuff, even went down towards the dam area, looked around a little bit, but man, going into the tournament, my decision was primarily based on those two bites that I got in practice on that area. In fact, I had found quite a few other things, some brim beds, and some really key pieces of cover and whatnot that seemed to be holding numerous fish. And so, yeah.
And I know y'all are probably going to fish Hobie and Caddo again next year, so don't feel like you need to. And I think everybody would understand if there's a few things you want to hold back too. So don't worry about that. All right, so we'll go ahead and talk about tournament day one. Brady, well, just 3 days. Just tell us about your whole tournament.
Well, the first day was pretty wild. Rolled up.
Yeah, probably
to my spot. Yeah. First fish of the tournament ended up being big fish, but sorry. I saw him busting up there. I was sitting off in the creek channel, and I saw probably like 5 minutes in, I saw him start busting. So there'd been a boat kind of work up towards me. And I'm like, whatever, you can kind of have this area that I caught the 18 and 20 that I just told you about earlier in practice. And so I run up to that schooling spot and hook my chatterbait out there, and it loads up right away, and it was that 8-pounder. And I ended up filling my card right there. And then just kind of, fished around looking for stuff for the next day. Thought I had a pretty decent card for day one. Went back up in the trees late and caught another big one, about 22, that pulled me up to 98 3/4. And man,
you had 98 3/4 and still had a 16 3/4 on your bag.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty crazy. How did you feel like, one cast in an 8-pounder or the very beginning of a 3-day tournament? Like, hell yeah, I got this, or oh no, this is too quick, or
there it is.
Well, my initial thought when I first hooked her was my new friend Calvin D, the dude that just caught a 10-pounder in practice. He's like, man, it just felt like a catfish pulling. That's what it felt like. And so I'm like, dude, there's no way I just loaded up with a 10-pounder first fish of the tournament, but didn't end up being that. But yeah, I've been in that position before where my first fish was actually 23 3/4 in a tournament. So yeah, I was pretty dang pumped. Then I didn't really stew on it at all. Like, I threw it on the board and got a picture and put it back real quick, because I knew how big of fish were in those schools. So I'm like, that could be the small fish in that school. So I had to get back in there really fast. But I didn't really sit and, I was pumped, but I knew like I had to get back in there really fast. And after that 5th bite, which was like a 15 or something that I got out of the school, it just dissipated. So I'm really glad that I got back in there really quick.
When you rolled up on them, you've already got the visual cues of them busting and schooling like that. Did you still throw the live scope down on them, or did you just start casting?
Yeah, I just started casting up in there. It was only about 3 foot up there, so it'd been pretty hard to see anyway. And I purposely stayed way back, and I think I actually made a cast or two working up there to try not to get up too close to them to spook them, because the water was real clean in there too. But yeah, the end of the day, you know, I've got 98 3/4, and it changed from like, man, I never looked at the leaderboards. I didn't know I was in first, but I'm like, man, I could get to 100 today, and I've never gotten to 100 a day of fish in my life. The closest I've ever been was 99 3/4 one day, fun fishing in Iowa.
Wow.
And so I'm like, man, I'm gonna do this. And so I take off fishing really hard, and I don't know it's Brian, but I see Brian kind of coming back to the ramp because there's a storm rolling in, you know. And I'm fishing hard these last 30 minutes, and about 2:30, a big bolt of lightning came over and just boom, and I was right by the ramp. So I'm like, I better just turn it in and be satisfied with my 98 3/4 for today. But so didn't make it to 100 like Brian did, but then day 2 rolled around and it was not nearly as fun or eventful. And I think I made a lot of people very nervous, especially my mom. She was pretty mad at me after the day for taking that long to catch 5. But I got out on that flat, and Brian's area, he was fishing with another angler, and they kind of had that area to themselves all day. But over where I was, a few hundred yards away, there'd been a lot more anglers over there, and there was a lot, like, you could tell the fish were pressured. And the first fish I caught was a really good one. It was almost a 20-incher, but she short struck it right at the boat, and I barely got a hook in her and got her in, and then I pulled off another 1 or 2. And so right away I'm thinking, like, I need to start grinding around now to go try to find some big ones. And I had several other areas really close by that I caught really good fish in the tournament. So I ran over to those, and man, it just was not happening. I caught a couple more good ones, but it took hours. And at the end of the day, I had 4 fish. I had about 40 minutes left to go. And I get over to the deep channel, where I'd been catching a lot of little fish and little schools, you know, like little spots and 14-inch largemouth. I'm like, I just got to get a fish. I can go fishing tomorrow. And I'm live scoping around, and then I just blind cast with my jerk bait that I picked up after putting the chatterbait down. And one falls it to the surface right at the boat and misses it. And I slap it back on the water, jerk it once, and I've got like 8 foot of line out, and it grabs it, and I get it in. That was my 5th fish, and I didn't catch another fish after that. So if I don't catch that 14.5-inch fish, you know, on day 2, like, I'm not even fishing day 3 really. But then day 3 rolled around, and before I even went out, I'm like, there's been so much noise out there on that flat. I got to change it up. Like, I got to throw something else. And that's when I picked up the jerk bait. Right away, got started with a 19 3/4 again. And when I saw a school, you'd always get 1 or 2 out of it. So I filled my cart up in a couple hours. It took a little while, but it wasn't as easy as day 1 for sure. And got a really nice limit, but I knew it wouldn't hold. You know, I looked at the leaderboard for the first time all weekend and saw what Brian had done. I'm like, well, I'm still out here fishing for 10 grand, so I better keep trying hard. I knew I needed 1 more bite because I was in 3rd at that point, just behind Justin. And man, I fished forever and didn't get another bite for hours. I'm like, what's going on? And finally I ran over to one of my other areas where there was some deeper water, and Ewing Minor was back there. And I'm like, how's it going today? He's like, it's been absurd, dude. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, I've got like 96 inches. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he's like, be ready because they're busting up shallow. So right at the end, I picked up a flute because I didn't want to hook one on trebles and have to horse it in. And she blew up on the bank with like 2 minutes left to go. I hooked my fluke up there, and she smoked it. And I winched her in and boat flipped her, and she was 19.5. And that's what put me up there 1/4 inch ahead of JP. But it was a tournament of just single fish, you know, just that one fish that counted so much, you think back on your season of how you got to TOC or won AOI or got that high in AOI or whatever it is, and it's always like one or two fish. You think back to that key fish. If that doesn't happen, the whole season comes crashing down, and it could have happened that way several times for me over the weekend.
That's crazy. It's got to feel good though to that last fish be that money fish. You can say, oh, that's a $10,000 fish. Like
yeah, well, it was a $7,500 fish because I would have finished 4th place behind Nolan and behind Justin. And that fish bumped me up ahead of both of them, and the timestamp on it is like 2:59 and 30 seconds. So I had like a minute and a half to get the picture taken. And I look at him, and he's like, "How big is that, dude?" I'm like, "It's like a couple inch upgrade at least." And he said, "I don't know. If nobody else upgraded, that could have just won me AOI." Talking about him because he was right up there in the AOI race, and it didn't end up winning him AOI, but I think it might have put him ahead of his brother.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That, I mean, him helping you out, I guess he can rub it into his brother.
Yep.
I mean, they were going back and forth on the weigh-in. So that's the only reason I said that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man.
No,
Justin,
pretty cool guys.
Yeah. Justin, how about your tournament, man?
Well, I want to fast forward to day 3 just because his piece is so, there's so much drama kind of going on right there in those last couple of minutes, like from one side of the lake to the other. So, he's in that moment, he's catching his cull, that 19 or whatever. And my school had died off, and I'd been catching like 17s and stuff. I needed like an 18 3/4 or something like that. And I just couldn't get it. Well, I hadn't even hit my brim bed all weekend except for once. But the day that I did hit it, the wind wasn't really right for it. So it was perfect conditions, and I hadn't hit it all day on Friday. Well, in that last minute or so, I'm tailing off, hightailing over to this brim bed to try and pick up one more cullfish, and I didn't realize it was further than the time that I had dictated. And I get like 5 minutes over there, and I realize like, oh crap, I don't have enough time. So, but didn't get to make a cast. But also when I got back to the ramp, I had caught, when I was catching so many fish on Friday in that school, I was just taking pictures of them, and just saving in my gallery. It wasn't even submitting them to Tourney X. So when the school died off, I just went through and found the last 5 fish, the best 5 fish that I could, and thought those were it. So get back to the ramp. I'm, heading towards the Airbnb, and I just had this this thought just to like pull off and just double check all your pictures and make sure you didn't have one that you missed. Well, I get in there, and sure enough, because at the time my smallest fish was an 18, and I get in there and I found another one that was 18 1/4. So it was that 1/4 inch cull. And so when we got up on stage and he said there was a 1/4 inch difference there, I was like, man, you've got to be kidding me. Like that's, there's a reason for everything, that's what I was thinking. But it was crazy the way it worked out. But, Saturday, Friday, every day was different for me. Although I was fishing the same water, all the conditions, were changing the way that I had to catch them. So, I mean, I was even making adjustments throughout the day. But, I hadn't got a bite on a buzzbait or topwater at all in practice, and I covered quite a bit of water throwing a whopper plopper and a buzzbait and stuff, and never got a bite on it. But I picked up a black buzzbait on Friday. I had caught one that morning on a swim jig, but after that, it just didn't really seem like that was just kind of a one-off fluke situation. Kind of got really around my juicy area, and they weren't biting any of those moving baits, swim jig, chatterbait. Even the wind was pushing up in there a little bit, so I tried a spinnerbait, and it just didn't seem like they wanted to commit to any of that kind of stuff. So just kind of leaning on some experience, I figured, if they don't want to bite that, then I need to get them to react. So I tied on that loud buzzbait, and they just started smoking it. And got some pretty cool videos of them just flushing it, man. It was awesome. But filled out my full limit on Friday with the buzzbait. And then we go out Saturday, and of course that cold front blew through, and I tried the buzzbait for a minute, but I pretty much figured it wasn't going to work for me in my area. And they were kind of tucked up in the trees. You had so much of that Salvania and stuff. It kind of made like just an edge in a lot of places. And they were definitely relating to that stuff. There were some areas that was just so thick that they would transition up underneath it from one side to another, because you just had these long and expansive Salvania flats, but it had water under it, and so I kind of caught on to that, on day 2, and some of those fish were kind of tucking up in that stuff. So I started punching, caught a few fish doing that. And then the rest of my fish came on those fish that kind of moved out of the real shallow water and kind of moved out on the outside edge of the trees. And they were biting the lipless pretty good. So, and that's, man, if I can get them going on a lipless, that's one of my favorite ones to catch them. But kind of had to downsize. I usually start off with a 1/2 ounce like most people, but it was so shallow I couldn't keep it out of the grass very well. So downsized to a 1/4 ounce, and they were choking it pretty good. So kept up with that. And I mean, the quality on day 2 definitely went down for me. I even went, searching some of that, isolated stuff, looking for a big kicker or whatnot. I just couldn't. The wind was pretty bad out on the main lake. So it was really hard to kind of present your bait, well to those trees. But, went back and forth on my area, just trying to call up again on Saturday. But, I was really concerned every single day just because, I was fishing an area probably the size of like maybe 3 football fields, but it was very detailed stuff within that area that I was fishing. So I was really concerned that I was going to run out of fish. And when I got out there Sunday, I made another adjustment before we even launched. I had a spinnerbait tied on, but it wasn't supposed to be that windy. So swapped out the spinnerbait for a swim bait and got out there and started throwing the lipless around. And I had some fish that wouldn't really commit to the lipless. And then I would follow up with that swim bait, and they were killing it. So, that was pretty neat to kind of have that just thought beforehand just to make that adjustment, and then it work out. But
how big of a swim bait?
It was just like a 4.8, I think, a Strike King swim bait, just a little paddle tail swim bait, like a Kai tack,
I didn't know if you were talking about like,
like, big one. Yeah. No, man, I had a big 6.8 Kai tack bluegill color tied on going down there. I was like, man, I'm gonna get him on this big.
Yeah, on the brim bed. Yeah.
But I never did get that to work. But so anyways, I kind of worked through my area a couple of times and went back out because one of my first fish that I caught of the day was a 19-incher and was kind of on a point. Wind was kind of pushing across it. And I had caught a fish there just about every single day, and I never really understood why. I would even throw back in there each day, and it wouldn't catch another one. But on day 3, it was colder, even colder than Saturday, and so all those fish, seemed to pull out because when I made another pass through that area, man, it just blew up. It was one after another. It's not often you get into a school like that, but it was one cast after the next for probably about a good hour and a half on the lipless bait.
Wow.
And, that's
nuts.
It was so much fun. I caught the 22, then I called out pretty much every other fish except for the 19. And it died down a little bit and tied on a Texas rig, real light Texas rig, and was just kind of finessing that through there. And pretty much what it was just a hard spot on this point. And it had a couple of little small grass patches on it. I'm talking like maybe a couple of strands of grass in there. Because it was a very, very, very small area where they were biting. But man, just sat on that the rest of the day. I would kind of venture down a little bit, let it die, and really just trying to come back and see if another big one would bite. And just never did get another bite. But man, absolute blast. I felt like I I don't know, man. I was on cloud nine, man. I had a lot of fun that day.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how I've never been there, but man, it's from all the tournaments I've been there, it seems like I'm at, just one of those special lakes in the country.
Yeah, that's the same for me. I don't know why I have. That's like my wheelhouse of my style of fishing, and I've never went down there and checked it out. But maybe I'll change that next year.
I've been there, there's been like so few bass boats, and I was there in kind of the end of the spawn, post spawn, and then this time, and the most boats I saw the whole time were over on the Louisiana side, and there weren't even that many. So I mean, I'm sure the hunting season kind of affected that this fall, but even in the summertime, there weren't that many. I can't believe there aren't more people that go there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the other thing. We had duck season start on Saturday.
Oh.
I was fishing right next to one, man, and I think that they kind of gave me a little courtesy, duck call warning when I started getting close. But I was like,
hey, at least they did that. Around here, you'll get a shotgun shot.
Well, that's what I was expecting. In fact, I was talking with some guy. I think it was Rolando, and I was like, man, I was thinking about bringing my gun out here just in case one of them wanted to fire at me. But then I was like, you know what? That would get real ugly real quick. Be okay, corral out here. I'm going to lose in this kayak.
That would be some really awesome national coverage for kayaks. Duck hunters and kayak anglers go at it with shotguns on Kiddo Lake.
I was nervous, man.
I've done it last year. We were fishing somewhere and it was a foggy morning, and it was a place I've been tons of times. I've never seen duck hunters out there ever. And I came around the corner and didn't know they were there, and they didn't know I was there because the fog was so thick. And then as it started to lift, I'm just out there in the channel fishing in front of them. I was like, oh my God, I'm glad no birds flew by because they couldn't see me.
All right, Brian, tell us about this magical weekend.
Tell us how some saltwater guy comes down and just absolutely makes bass fishing look easy.
That's the thing. It was too easy. Yeah, I mean, my day one, I literally, it was my first cast. I doubled up with a 16 and a 17-inch bass. And then I think 3 casts later, I had another double. I had a limit within 10 minutes on the first day on top water. So it was pretty ridiculous. I filled the limit again, 10 minutes. And then I don't know how many fish I missed on top water because they're just they weren't really committed to it. They're just kind of slashing at it. But I upgraded a few on top water there and on that main spot. And then eventually I moved around throwing a worm, and I really couldn't do no wrong. Everywhere I went, it was the first or second cast, I'd hit one in the head, 20-incher, 19-incher. So, I mean, that first day, and then again, I was kind of going to stop fishing at I think 11 or noon or something. And I saw Brady he put up 98. I'm like, oh, maybe I should keep going. But I didn't want to beat up anything else I had. I had some other spots that were a little away from that main spot. So I did fish a little longer because Brady put that 98 up. But I still ended a little early. I think I stopped fishing at 2:00 on day one. And then again, I felt fairly confident going into day two that, that bite was going to be consistent, even with the colder weather coming in. And it was, I got back out there again. I got a limit fairly quick within probably 20 minutes on that same spot. And they were definitely relating to a real specific spot there. I'd say a 10 by 10 area that you had to make a cast into to get a bite, that first couple, an hour and a half, and then they would kind of spread out a little bit from there. But I, again, filled the limit on the top water on day two, and then upgraded, I think, once or twice on a worm, moving around a little bit. And again, I called it a day because I didn't want to beat them up anymore. That I did move around again, and Steve, the camera boat guy, was following me around. I ran into him a little later, and I told him I was catching 18s in another area that I had caught some in practice, and I'm like, I just don't want to fish anymore, just in case. I had to come get these fish later, for day 3. But so again, I called it early. Went in, I think, noon on day 2, and again, going into day 3, I was I really didn't think the cold was going to affect them. I thought if anything, it was going to make it even better. So, and it did. I got out there again, and it took me a little longer to get a limit this time. But again, they're really focused in that one little spot. I couldn't get a bite outside of that spot on day 3. And it did take a little longer, but they were bigger fish on day 3 in that spot for that first hour and a half. And I got everything on top water on that day. I think I did the 98 inches. I went to go upload. I let the other angler that was sharing that spot with me have the spot for a little while. I had to move because I didn't have service where I was at. Uploaded those fish, and I came back. Sorry about the light there. And I came back through the top water. I think maybe 5 or 6 more casts, and I got 2 20-inch upgrades. So, and then I went over 100 on that. So, and then I was just sitting there watching. It was Nolan was next to me, and I was just sitting there watching him, cheering him on. We're literally 15 feet from each other, just power pole down, just casting, and I was just sitting there munching on some snacks, watching him catch fish. So it was pretty cool.
Dude, I went out there day 3, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do all I can, and hopefully Brian slips. And 30 minutes in, I hear he and Nolan just. I'm like, well, they're catching them. It's over for me.
I pulled up to the spot, and it was 10 minutes before first cast, and Steve's out there for the camera boat, and I see him busting already. I'm like, this is gonna be it. It's over. It's over. And I told Steve, I was trying to get Steve closer because he kept, he's trying to be respectful and not be close on my fish. I'm like, dude, get closer here so you can see these fish blow up on my bait, first cast. So again, it was just ridiculous. I don't have any other words for it. I mean, it was just the ideal setup. I don't know what to say about it. It was crazy.
Going back to your thought process
go ahead.
Going back to what you said, that you were pretty sure that the cold front, was going to make it even better. What was your thought into that? Like what about it made you think that way?
I just because of the area where it was. Again, it was closer to some deeper water. So if they're going to push into the deeper water with the cold,
I think, a big move.
Yeah, where I was at, I think that they would even be pushing in there even more. So that was my thought process. And there's plenty of bait, getting pushed up against that. It was a grass line along some deeper water. So there's a bunch of gizzard shad that was up on there. Nice. And they were just going to town on them.
Is that what you think made that spot a little bit better than other ones because of the depth of water?
For sure, yeah. Having that grass next to the deeper water, and again, that there were, like I say about that specific spot, I don't know exactly what was right there because I never wanted to go actually over it and kind of see what was there, but there was something probably there that they were relating to that exact spot for some reason, at least early in the morning. But on day 3, it was after that first couple hours, they were all over that flat. They were just spread out everywhere. But they did get smarter. Again, Nolan started to struggle, a little later in the day. They were busting shad everywhere, but they wouldn't hit anything you threw at them. So they were definitely focused on the actual bait.
Were you in, with the gizzard shad in that relative area too? Is it big gizzard shad or a lot of really tiny fresh...
No, they're big gizzard shad.
Yeah, that goes back to that goes back to, we did a show a couple weeks ago with Russ talking about at the KBF, and that was something that he mentioned is the gizzard shad you like to follow are the bigger ones because the bigger fish can actually eat the bigger gizzard shad. So having that grass line, deep water, and good sized gizzard shad is just kind of like the 3 pieces of that puzzle that you need.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
When you got off of it on day 1 and day 2, were you nervous that people were just gonna come hop on it? Or I mean, I know you sat over there for a while on day 1, but
well, on day 2, I kind of sat there pretending like I was casting. I was throwing a buzz bait and let it sink to the bottom and reeling it back real slow, acting like fishing. So yeah, me and Nolan definitely were protecting it and kind of just sitting on it. Somebody else would come in there, but yeah, for sure.
on day 3, after I think that you kind of left, but then Nolan was still sitting there for a while. and he finally left, and it was like hyenas getting on a
Yeah.
dang lion kill or something. That it's just all in that area.
He said he was going to go by his brother and fish with him, and that was at like noon. And I said, all right, I'm going to go head back to the truck. And then I asked him later if he went back there to, because he said he didn't get anything better. I asked him if he went back to that spot. He's like, no, I went back, but there's like 4 or 5 people on the spot,
Wow.
But yeah, it definitely died out, after the morning. So
yeah,
that's so funny.
It was so wild for me because we all went out the same ramp, and Friday morning we all took off, and all of y'all went right, and I was like, yes. I mean, it worked out better for y'all, but man, I was happy to kind of fish by myself over there.
Yeah.
How many of y'all were at that launch? Was it pretty much all the leaders?
There's like 10 people that launched there, and there's probably at least 7 that were in the top, something like that. I don't know.
Quite a few, yeah.
That's crazy.
I think there was a couple, 2 or 3 more on day 2 and day 3, especially.
Yeah,
really?
Seemed like a few more showed up. But it was kind of hard to tell because there was quite a few other trucks out there for duck hunting and whatnot.
But
sometimes
also there were quite a few people that had planned to use that area later in the tournament and vice versa. So there were people come and go, and that's what I had originally planned to do as well, was to move to a different area. But when I saw how many fish were in that area, I just kind of stuck around there.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes. You change ramps or whatever, and then you show up some guys or doing well. It's always a tough game to play.
Yeah.
You want to be respectful, but you want to catch them, and it's always tough.
I mean, at least the folks stayed off your spot, Brian, while you were there. You hear about the guys that start to creep in while you're on it,
right?
But
that was the best part. Like, again, I gotta give a shout out to Nolan. Like, I beat him to that spot, and he came up on me and kind of saw what I had tied on. It was like, well, it looks like we saw the same thing in practice. I'm like, yeah, probably. So, we talked a little bit and said we'd give some space on that day 1, and we worked together. We gave each other space, in the morning, but obviously I made sure that I'd get there first every day so I could get the spot that I wanted. But we worked together to give each other some space. And again, I was very courteous to him. I said, no, dude, I don't care. You can come on in here, like, get some of this action. So, and he was very, nice to me to give me the go ahead because, I had the lead and I had beat him there every morning. So,
what kayak are you in that you were able to beat him?
PA 14.
So y'all were in the same boat. You just got stronger legs.
I do this every day. I'm willing to bet I can beat anybody to a spot. So, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you do add offshore stuff. You can't mess around there.
Yeah. Thoroughbred legs.
I love it.
All right. Well, we've had you for 50 minutes. We don't want to hold y'all up too much. We appreciate y'all being on, but and congratulations. I mean, to do well at the TOC, especially, make that big 45,000, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hell of a weekend. But congrats to y'll. But we want to give you a chance to shout out any sponsors or anybody that makes fishing easier for you. Justin, we'll start with you, man.
I'll just shout out my my main sponsor, Battleborn Batteries. They've been a huge help for me this year, being able to get out and travel. And if anybody listening is in the West Tennessee area and look for a Hobie, go and check out S.Y. Wilson and Company right there in Arlington, Tennessee. David's your guy, man. He'll meet you halfway if he needs to, but great inventory right now.
Dang, I know, Brady, you're in a Hobie too, Justin?
Yeah.
Dang, all three of y'all. Yeah, it is a Hobie tournament, but, still. Brady, how about you, man?
Yeah, I've got a few sponsors. I've got Select Zone Sports back here in Nebraska. They're our local Hobie dealer. I've been with them for quite a few years. They're pretty awesome. Mossy Oak Fishing, and then I'm on the Hobie fishing team, the national team or whatever. And comes with a lot of cool perks. And I mean, you gotta give a shout out to AJ. He worked so hard on this series. I mean, all three of us made over 10 grand at that tournament. You know, top three all making over 10 grand. That's crazy. When I first saw that earlier this year, like, that's just second to none. You know, that's pretty awesome for 50 guys. But
cool, Brian.
Yep, DOA lures, Crowder rods, Frog Tugs. My local dealer, South River Outfitters, he's always helping me out with anything I need. And you know, I also run a kayak charter service down here in South Florida. It's Push and Water Kayak Charters. So if you guys ever want to get into, you know, something other than greenfish, we got, you know, lots of opportunities down here for offshore stuff like sailfish, tuna, things like that.
Like, what's the best time of year to come down for sailfish?
For most all species, it's end of April through July is the best time for everything. Our, you know, sailfish wise, we have sailfish here all year long, so any time of the year.
Wow. And like, what would you say is a percentage of people going out there and being able to catch one? Is it like pretty good odds
to land one or to have one bite?
Bite.
Yeah.
Let's say bite.
These sailfish bites are fairly common. Yeah, our main two fish are sailfish and kingfish, and you know, it's a matter of landing it. Whole thing.
Heck yeah! As long as you can see it come up and jump, that's
all you want.
Yeah. It's the hot one. Yeah, I've got a picture. I'm putting that bitch on my wall.
Exactly.
Or a replica, you know. All right, we appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for being on, and good luck. I'd say the rest of the season, but I guess the season's pretty much over. Good luck next year.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Y'all be good.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
45K.
Been nice to see a bunch of big money won over the last few weeks of kayak fishing across the board.
Yeah, for sure.
I was hoping old Russ, when I saw him up in fourth on day 2, I was hoping he would make that run for it, just because I was, you know, like, say he won 80 grand in 2 tournaments or 90 grand in 2 tournaments, how crazy that would have been.
Yeah.
But congrats to those guys.
And next week, and also congratulations, Cody Milton, for winning double angler of the year, KBF and Hobie. We hope to have him. Try to get him on next week if we can, but yeah, congrats to him locking up AOY and getting that purdy Hobie PA.
Yeah, and Cody top 10 in that event too. Cody came in at 8th. We'll give the top 10 a shout out. So we already had Brian, Brady, and Justin. 4th was Nolan Miner, 5th Ewing Miner, 6th Jordan Marshall, 7th Rolando Nanden, 8th Cody Milton, 9th Justin Brewer, and 10th Kevin Workman. So
and congrats to everybody. Just make it to a TOC. I mean, people, you know, everybody goes out there and all year trying to get into it, but you know, it's crazy. Some guys at the bottom, you know, that didn't have a good weekend, and they're still some of the best anglers in the country. So it's always tough with a big championship like that.
That's right. Well, that was the only tournament recap that I had for this week. So
dang,
one and done. Season's over.
And just we'll have a couple more weeks episodes, and then I think it's December 12th?
December 10th or December 12th. We'll be taking our annual winter break from podcasting. We'll be back, I think, January 10th or 12th.
Yeah.
With an episode after that. We may get some stuff hammered out and pre-recorded for then, but hopefully somewhere in that time frame we'll get some. I know we had the Hobie schedule release, but hopefully we will have more schedule releases, rule updates, you know, any of that nonsense that we can share when we come back to kind of kick the season off. But we'll probably.
I will say this, like Hobie and KBF has theirs out, and that I talked to somebody at Bass, and they have it. It's just, you know, it's one of those things where some T's aren't crossed and some I's aren't dotted. And if you come out with it early, I know everybody wants schedule, I do too, but if you come out with it early and then something has to change because, you know, something, that 99%, that 1%, something changes, and then you look bad. So everybody wants a schedule. All the clubs want a schedule around them and try to support them if they're coming to your state or locally. But that's the only thing holding up. It's not them holding it up. It's some different locations, things like that. So Bass is on it. They're really trying to put out a schedule as soon as possible. So, it's coming.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Another great episode. Last thing to touch on. Dan, I saw this before we got on. I saw your shop Summerland's doing a huge Black Friday sale, like ginormous. Like there's some stupid good deals on it. So everybody go check that out. And then if you're in anywhere close or not even close to Nashville, we're going to have some sales over at Music City Outdoors. We've got some gently used Hobies that we just kind of need them out of the way because we have a lot of orders coming in at the first of the year, and we've got to get some of these gently used boats out of the way. And we're going to have some good deals on some last year models too. So if you're in the market for a kayak going into the Christmas season, Black Friday, all that stuff, give us a call or come check us out at Music City Outdoors. Go see Dan and them. I mean, I read 25% off on all the kayaks there. So
it's like $100 Shimano X Pride rod.
I saw that and was like I'm a Dobbins guy, but it's because like X Prides, you're usually like, I can't afford that kind of stuff.
It's like absurd sales and deals going on at Summerland. So Music City Outdoors and Summerland Outdoors, check them out. Everybody I know I do. I literally save up money just for Black Friday because some of the fishing deals are so good. But it sucks it's at the end of the year and you won't get to use them until next year. But it's definitely the best deals of the year.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's been another great show, folks. We appreciate everybody as always. We will see y'all next week. And again, hopefully we'll be able to get Cody on to talk about his great year. But until then, everybody be safe and peace.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You could support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.